Hello again and welcome to the Greekosophy channel. My name is Tam and today it's going to be the third episode of our 4-part series on how to read and pronounce Greek properly within just one day. Now, if you haven't seen the other 2 episodes, you really have to start from the beginning, otherwise you're going to find this episode very difficult. So please click the links at the description of this video below. It will take you to the first and the second parts. For all of you that have already seen them, welcome to the third part. Let's go! Okay then, let's start with the letter phi, as in phi. And when you see that letter, it's pronounced f, as in feet, fox, and Firmino. Moving on to letter he, as in hero, he, much more heavier, h, hero. And as you probably realized, when you see it in a Greek word, it's pronounced h, as in high, hip, Henderson. But as I said, a heavier h, not high, but high. You know, you get full on in there. And then is the letter psi, as in tipsy. And when you see it, it's pronounced ps. Now, be careful here, because in English, when a word starts with ps, it's a different pronunciation. You don't pronounce the P. But when you see the letter psi in a Greek word, it's pronounced as ps. Cups, tips, flips, ps. You have ps in that. And finally, the last 24th letter of the Greek alphabet is the letter omega, as in omega-3 fatty acids. Omega. And when you see it, it's pronounced O, as in log, fog, origi. And if you remember from the previous 2 videos, there is also another letter, omicron, that if you see it, it's pronounced as O. So, we've made it. That is all the 24 letters of the Greek alphabet. And yes, you have guessed it. It's time for our third test. Okay? Now, slightly different from the previous tests is this particular test, and I will explain what I mean by that. In the previous tests, I gave you the words, just the writing of them, and you try to look at your notes and pronounce them correctly. On this particular test, I'm going to show you the picture and the word of that item in the picture written in Greek. Alright, so I'm not going to tell you the equivalent English word. I'm just going to show you the picture and I'm going to give you the Greek word, and you're just going to have to try and read and pronounce it correctly in Greek. And the reason I'm doing that is I am now, I'm Greek and I lived in the UK for so long that I'm now proficient in speaking both languages, both Greek and English, or I hope that I can do that. But after a few months, or during my first year in the UK, in my first, let's say, weeks and months, I have to first listen to what somebody was talking to me, was speaking to me in English, and then translate it in my mind in Greek in order to understand what he was saying. And obviously that process causes a delay between somebody telling you something and you replying. At the same happening with replying back. So I had to think what I want to say in Greek, translate it in my mind in English, and then reply back. But as as the weeks and months passed, it came to the point where I didn't have to do that automatically, subconsciously. So even if I didn't know how something was pronounced in English, or how do you call something in English, the minute that somebody told me, I knew how to to say it the next time. I didn't have to, let's say, oh, this is, let's say, a cup. So now I know that this is called a cup. I'm going to store it in memory. Cup in Greek means, whatever it means. Flizani, for example, and therefore I remember now that flizani will mean cup, etc., etc. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. The easiest way to learn a second language is not to try to store it in memory, store that foreign, strange word in memory, by trying to, first of all, think of what is the equivalent in your own language. That way, sometimes you're going to get confused, but a lot of time it's going to take a lot of time to remember things. The best thing is to use your visual memory. You see here, for example, that this is an apple, but you don't have to know now that this is an apple. All you have to know that in Greek this is a, whatever the pronunciation is, to remember how to call it in Greek. Now, most probably people that speak more than one language can relate to what I'm saying. It's for me, it was an easy way to become very good in English. I mean, I already could speak fluent English, even when I came from Greece. But in the first few months, by using the technique, certainly my vocabulary developed a lot by doing that. But let's start. Let's start with this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you picture bit by bit, and you can write in your notes what the pronunciation is, and then I'm going to come back from the first picture onwards to tell you the pronunciation correctly. So feel free, for example, to pause every time that I put up a new picture, write down the pronunciation, and then move on to the next picture. So let's start with this picture, and then we move on to this picture, and then this one, this one, this one, this one, and I'm getting slightly hungry as I'm looking at these photos. And as a final test for you, I'm gonna. These are the two photos. I'm not gonna say the names. Obviously, you know what is the names of the little engine here and this person here. So what I'm gonna do, what I want you to do actually, is remember how you pronounced those names in English, and then I want you to write those pronunciations in Greek. Okay, slightly confusing, but let's say your name is let's say your name is Anna, okay, in English. Now you know now what the Greek letter is when you pronounced A. You know what the Greek letter is for pronouncing N, and therefore you can combine those letters to write Anna in Greek. So if you know the name of this engine, and if you know the name of this fella here, I want you to pronounce it in your mind in English and write that pronunciation, therefore the name, in Greek letters as well. Okay, take your time, pause it, rewind it, fast forward it as many times as you want, and have a go, and I will be back with the answers. Okay, then let's start with the answers. Again, I will take it bit by bit. Now, I'm not gonna even say what word is in English. We start with the first letter, and the first letter is M. Okay, its pronunciation is M. The second is pronounced I. The third is pronounced L. And the fourth is pronounced O. So altogether, the word is Milo in Greek. Milo, with the emphasis on the first syllable. Milo. And obviously, Milo is an apple. Okay, but that's why I said to you, you don't have to say, oh, this is an apple. Apple in Greek means Milo. You don't have to remember it like that. The minute you see that and you think Greek, Milo, oh, here's a Milo. Here is a Milo. Okay, if you think in English, here's an apple. If you think in Greece, Milo. Next photo. Quite a complicated word, that one. But let's start slowly. First letter, I'm going to give the pronunciation only. A. Then E. R. A, E, R. O. P. A, E, R, P. L. A. N. O. So altogether, aeroplano. Emphasis on this syllable, pla. So aeroplano, aeroplano, which means airplane. That's where it comes from, the word airplane. Aeroplano. I hope you got that one right. The next one. Let's see if the first letter confused you. So we've got the pronunciation of the first letter as ps, not s, ps. The p has to be pronounced as well as the s. Ps. A, r, I. Emphasis on the first syllable, on the letter A. Psari, psari, psari. And it's fish. Okay, fish in Greek is psari. Next word. First letter G, A, T, A. So altogether is gata. Gata, 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 which is obviously cat, gata. Okay then, that will obviously help you when you go to Greece and you sit down in a restaurant to eat. It's two words, not just one. Okay, so let's start with the letters. We've got T, I, G, A, Tiga, N, I, T, E, S. So tiganites, because the syllable, the tone is in the last syllable. Tiganites. And the next word, P, A, T, A. So pa, ta, T, E, S. So the second word is patates, okay, with the tone on the second syllable, patates. So altogether, tiganites patates, which means fried potatoes, chips, in other words. Tiganites patates. So you sit in a restaurant and you want some chips, tiganites patates. This one here, we've got V, A, R, so VAR, not VAR, like in football, VAR, K, A, so it's varka, 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 which means boat. This one, let's see if you can pronounce it. V, I, V, so it's viv, L, so it's vivel, vivel, I, O. So altogether, with the emphasis on this letter, viβλio, 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 which means book. This one, I don't know what that I is going there. Oops, hold on a second. So the first letter is ps, second is o, then is m, and the last one is e, already written there. So psomi, psomi, which means bread. Psomi. Again, we pronounced the p together with yes, psomi. Okay, long one here, but most probably you've guessed by now what it means. So let's start with the first letter. H. H. Not ch, not k, h. O, so it's ho. R, so r, rolling r. I, a, so choria, choria. T, I, k, I. So the first word, choriatiki, choriatiki. Now you can say it choriatiki, which is a very clear pronunciation, but in Greece when you start talking quite fast, it sounds choriatiki, not choriatiki, choriatiki, choriatiki. But choriatiki is fine. And the second word we got s, a, l, a, sala, t, a. Emphasis on the middle syllable, salata. So altogether, choriatiki salata, choriatiki salata, which obviously is the Greek salad. Okay, now, and we came to the last exercise. As I said to you before, you have to write in Greek the English name of what you see. So obviously here we have Thomas the Tank, and this is how you write Thomas in English. But what actually I want you to do is hear, listen to the actual pronunciation. Thomas, Thomas. So by listening to how these letters are pronounced, Thomas, you can write them in Greek. So we have Thomas, T, O, and M, Tom, A, and S. So let's see how it went. So we have T as in tap, Thomas. And obviously this is the letter, the Greek letter for pronouncing T. For O, as in log, we use that, Thomas. Now remember there are two letters that are pronounced O. It's the omega as well, the last letter. So even if you use the omega, I will not gonna say that you did it wrong, because all I actually do is write the pronunciation in Greek. But normally I would expect that particular letter. And as you can see, because the emphasis on the word Thomas is in the first syllable, we don't say Thomas, we say Thomas, you put the tone as well. So T-O, then we go M, as in mat, which is our letter there, then A, which is the A, and finally S, and it's, remember, because it's the last S in the word, we use that one. So this is how Thomas is written in Greek, or the pronunciation of it. So for those of you who actually got it correct, well done. But to those of you who struggled a bit, don't worry. It was just an extra thing just to push you a bit. Don't worry. Now let's go to the next one. Obviously it's Harry Potter. Now again, if you pronounce it out loud, Harry Potter, Harry Potter, H-A-R-I-P-O-T-E-R. Let's start. The first one, H. The Greek letter is this one, for H. For A, as before with Thomas, that is A. And because the emphasis is on the first syllable in the letter Harry, is not Harry, it's Harry, we put the tone as well in the letter A. Now with this one, we have two R's, okay? So I would have expected you to put these two letters together, Harry, R, and E. Now, as I said, there are three E's in the Greek alphabet. So if you used any of those three, again, I would not count it as wrong, because you are writing the pronunciation. And with the second name, P as in Pita, which is P, O, again the tone, because the emphasis is on the first syllable. T, again, if you used two T's there, that's absolutely fine, because that's how you write it in the English name. E, and finally again are the rho. So I would have expected most of you to write something like that. So if you've written it like this, Harry Potter, you are spot on with regards to the pronunciation. Now, in Greece, we actually write Harry Potter as that. So we don't put the two R's, the two R's here, and we don't put the two T's. But as I said, it is not an error. You don't have to know how we write Harry Potter in Greek. All I wanted you to do is hear the word in English and write the pronunciation in Greek. Okay? That's what I wanted you to do. And this brings us nicely to the end of the third part of this series. Well done, everybody, to all those of you who tried it. I don't know how many of you got all of them correct, but the important thing is to learn the technique. Once you get to remember the pronunciation of each letter without having to look through your notes, that is the important part that you need to know. Then you can look at a catalog in a Greek restaurant or even a book or a newspaper, and you will most probably be able to read and correctly pronounce all the words and phrases there. So this is the end of the third part. I will meet you at the beginning of the fourth and final part, where I'm just going to show you some combinations of letters that are pronounced slightly different to the ones you have already learned about. So, third part of the series is over. I hope you're enjoying it, and I hope that your knowledge now is getting better and better. Thank you very much for watching. Keep an eye for the fourth and final video in the series, and please let me know how is it going with commenting below, so we know how things are and whether this video has been helpful for you or not. See you soon.